Yeah, these types of players really are an absolute pleasure. We had the joy of owning Thiago Alcantara for a little while,
Mm.
albeit it might have been a Thiago sort of on the wane. I think it's fair to say there were still moments, there were still flashes, and very much in my wheelhouse, up my street. These type of players, these silky
Mm.
technicians, and I think Martin Zubimendi may well be another one of them. I wanted to speak to you because you did an article on him, and it was sort of entitled "The Gen Z Sergio Busquets," which piques the interest sort of from the get-go, I guess. I want to pick across some of the points you made throughout it as we go along. Really, one of the top ones was about he has more touches, passes, and carries than any of his other teammates, which kind of sprung to me that he's clearly integral to everything Sociedad do. If you can start us off to sort of set the mood for the conversation in terms of his first team career at Sociedad. Has he always been that sort of linchpin? Has he always been so pivotal to the way they go about their football?
Yeah, in the last couple of years, he really has. I mean, he's basically Real Sociedad through and through. And, there's a lot of sentimentality really surrounding Zubimendi because he's from San Sebastian. He was coached by Xabi Alonso, who obviously is an idol, is one of his idols and a Liverpool legend as well. So there's lots of crossover there. And Xabi Alonso has spoken really highly of Martin Zubimendi. He said he has the mark of Zubieta, which is the academy at Real Sociedad. He is a player that all coaches would want. He's generous. He always thinks more about his teammates than himself. So, really kind of the things that Xabi Alonso used to do as a player, he's, kind of spotted that in Martin Zubimendi at an early age. So he kind of gradually made his way into the first team at Real Sociedad, very quickly really became a key player at the base of the midfield. And Real Sociedad's midfield has gone through a bit of a reconstruction over the last couple of years. They've lost a few key players. Obviously, Martin Odegaard was there for one season, which was a real breakthrough for him. David Silva has come and gone. So they've kind of had to switch systems through the years. But Zubimendi has always been that kind of player, as you say, the connector at the base of midfield to spring attack into defence. And with his kind of temperament on the ball and his technical ability and that ability to be able to kind of get out of tight positions and bring the ball upfield, that's exactly the kind of thing that you need to play that kind of role.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's been interesting. Obviously, we've seen a shift over the last 3, 4 weeks in Liverpool's style and Liverpool's identity. There's a
Mm.
lot of similarities with the way Jurgen Klopp got us playing. There's still that willingness to attack and that desire to press and all that sort of stuff and win the ball back quickly. But it's kind of been blended in now with a little bit more of a calm build up and a bit more patience and more possession based. Really, the top line, I guess. But in
Mm.
the article as well, you mentioned it receiving ball from the centre backs and even dropping in to be one of those centre backs at times and helping that build up from the deep. That's something that he became sort of renowned for, really, Zubimeni. And I noticed you mentioned some Xabi Alonso quotes there. I also I noticed one where he said he knows what he's going to do with the ball before it arrives. Is that something you've spotted as well? I mean, that to me is just a gift. Like to have that ability, as you mentioned there, to get out of those tight spaces. That's when you know you're watching as footballer with a tremendously high IQ.
100%. I mean, if you ever played five-a-side football and you kind of got someone on your back and you've got to get out of it, you realize how difficult that is to do. And Zubimendi kind of seems to have that, that ability to, know what he's going to do before he gets the ball, as you say, to kind of detect pressure and to kind of spin away from it, which is really crucial. And I think particularly, as you mentioned, under Arne Slot, we saw it at his Feyenoord side, and we've seen it in these early days under Liverpool that, he likes to have a midfielder, number six. It was Mats Wifer last season, who's now at Brighton. It was Kochku the season before, now at Benfica. It was Endo in pre-season for Liverpool, and he wasn't entirely comfortable in that role, I don't think, but he wants to have a midfielder close to those two centre backs who is the first easy pass out, and then you can build from there. And the thing is, with being that first easy pass out, is that other teams can read it, they can press up, and they can kind of set a kind of pressing trigger on that pass. So if you're that number six who's receiving that ball, you're going to be under pressure straight away. And that's where, somebody like Zubimendi, who's a bit of a natural in that situation, he knows, like you say, where the pressure's coming from. He's got that ability to kind of, get out of those tight situations. It's going to massively improve the kind of fluency of that move, which Slot and Liverpool will probably err towards a lot more.
No, absolutely, yeah, 100%. You mentioned a moment ago, Tom, how he's that sort of that cog between the defence and midfield. I wanted to
Mm.
ask you, his use of the ball. I mean, we've all seen the numbers, we've all seen the different visits going around over the past 24, 48 hours. Is it progressive more often than not? Because how often have we seen sort of pass completion rates in the high 90 percentages? But sometimes when you dig a little bit deeper, you go, yeah, but has he really done anything effective with it? Zubimendi, from the little compilations and the minutes I've seen him play down the years, looks as though he is trying to be impactful in what he does when he has it.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a player who's going to, pop up with, 10 assists from the base of midfield or anything like that. A lot of it is kind of connecting and moving forward. But obviously, you need that to get to those positions in the first place. And I think it's going to be interesting, looking at Liverpool, you've got players like Alexis McAllister, Dominic Szoboszlai, who really thrive on receiving the ball in those areas. And I think Zubimendi is going to be, obviously, if he does sign, he's going to be one of the players bringing the ball to those players as much as he can. I think one of the things that stands out as well is kind of the ability to play the passes to allow the next action. It's kind of like this, this empathy in his kind of passing, to play it to the right foot, to play it at the right speed in the right area. And that's the kind of thing, it's very kind of fine margins, but it's what makes these players really that they can kind of speed up the next action for the next player. And that is one thing that Zubimendi, it's not going to pop out in the statistics. It's not going to be something that everybody's going to, be shocked about straight away, but it's the kind of thing that players ahead of him will appreciate greatly.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that. Absolutely. Yeah. What did he say? Pass has got instructions on it is the phrase, it's the turn of phrase.
Yeah.
And we don't get to use it very often because there aren't many footballers that have that innate ability. But if Zubimendi ticks that box, that'll do for me. Just in terms of his attacking sense a little bit more, you said a moment ago he's not going to be one that stands out in the actual end numbers in terms of goals and assists. I think we've seen that in his career to date. It'd be nice if he was chipped in, of course. But in terms of his more attacking play, then in terms of even venturing into the final third, his ball carrying, does he bring that to the party, or is he very much that allow those in front of him to flourish?
He is quite reserved, but that obviously, is tied to his role that he's had to play. He's had a lot of very talented attacking players ahead of him at Real Sociedad over the last couple of years. Mikel Merino is obviously linked to Arsenal now. Bryce Mendes, a very talented player. David Silva, as we said, Martin Odegaard. He's had a lot of players ahead of him to do that job. So he's never really had to step into that role. But, there are kind of indications of his dribbling ability from deep that he could, step forward and make an impact in that regard. He's quite, a lot of concern I've seen over his signing is potentially his height and his aerial ability. But, there are, if you look at the statistics, his win percentage in the air is, often in the 60, 70% mark. So I don't think there'll be any problems there. And that does mean that if there are crosses coming in, corners, set pieces, I think he will be able to make, a little bit of an attacking impact in that sense.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, and Thiago was we mentioned him at the top of the show. I did. He was no man mountain, but yet still he won his fair share of aerial duels as well. Just had the spring heeledness really to get up above people. And how often is it the timing as opposed to actual height as well, more than anything else? So yeah, that doesn't really concern me.